Hello and welcome to the Maxi Geek Show. Today is Friday, February 25th, and this is episode number 8. Wow, 8 episodes. That's gone by pretty quick. 8 episodes? 7 episodes. You know what? I can't remember. This is an episode, at least, of the Maxi Geek Show. We are... honestly, there's not a lot of news this week. There's some news, but, you know, it's been pretty quiet across the board. So we have a few things we're going to get through. And then there's a few things that we need to sort of wait and hopefully, you know, through natural sort of discussion, we'll get into it. As I said, this is the Maxi Geek Show. We are live every Friday at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so 7 p.m. Melbourne time every Friday. We are, again, as you can see in the bottom corner here, powered by Rig. So Rig is my gaming headset of choice. And they've been kind enough to sponsor Maxi Geek for the year. What is funny is last week when I did this, I said, you know, how I went from one Rig headset to this new one that I'm wearing. And then I went looking for a power adapter for my GameCube in one of my many boxes of cables and found 2 more Rig headsets. So actually, I have 5 Rig headsets. That's how much I enjoy this headset. You know, so... you know, I've got Razer ones and Sennheiser ones and all that as well, but Rig is the brand that I go for. So again, we are sponsored by Rig, so they are the headset brand I highly suggest. Again, there is obviously a big thing happening in the world at the moment with Ukraine. We're not going to get into that here. It's not what the show's about, but we do, you know, wish everyone who is in Ukraine a very safe time and hope that they can remain safe throughout the length of this invasion that they're going through. Okay. That being said, we're going to talk about some video game news. And the first thing we're going to talk about is that Activision are potentially going to delay Call of Duty next year for the first time in a decade and more. So as being reported by Bloomberg from Jason Schreier, it is reported that Activision are set to delay the 2023 release of Call of Duty. So the 2022 release is still on track to happen this year, and that is being done by Infinity Ward and is a sequel to their Modern Warfare reboot from a few years ago. Not to be confused with the original Modern Warfare trilogy that Infinity Ward made in the mid-2000s. So ever since... it was Call of Duty World at War, which was Treyarch's first solo outing in the mainline, I'll put mainline in quotes there, the mainline series. Prior to that, when they made a game, it was Call of Duty Big Red 1, which is basically porting what was a PC-only title to consoles, but it was still very much their own, it's still very much a port of an existing thing. World at War was the first time they did their own version of it. That obviously was a little different because we had Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, then, you know, which is set in the modern times. Then we went back in time with World at War, and then we came back with Modern Warfare 2, which is sort of why we've been bouncing around, you know, from series to series ever since. What is interesting is that that was 2005. Oh, now I'm calling on the old memory to try and tell me when that game released. So Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was 2007. So 2007 is sort of when we went to a cyclical, like every 12 months there was a game. There was one in 2006 with Call of Duty 3. Sorry, that was Treyarch's first one. My apologies. But yeah, so you know, essentially for 15 years now, Call of Duty has been an annual title like FIFA and Madden and NBA 2K, where every 12 months we get a new Call of Duty. But that is not going to be the case going forward. They are basically saying, no, we're going to take a year off. So again, this is not confirmed. This is just pure speculation. I say speculation, but Jason Schreier is pretty on the ball with these sort of things. But, it just says the company is pushing off the release after a recent entry in the series failed to meet expectations, leading some executives to believe that they're introducing a new version too rapidly. Which, let's be honest, Ubisoft did the exact same thing. They released Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which in my opinion is one of the better ones. And then it didn't do so well didn't review so well favorably. So the team at the management team at Ubisoft pushed what was Assassin's Creed Origins out an entire year past when it was supposed to be released, giving the developers more time to recreate something really good. And that brought us into now what was more essentially an RPG rather than, a straight, not a straight not a straight adventure game, but there's more RPG elements mixed in with the free running and the assassinations. So it's not the first time we've seen companies do this. We saw Nintendo do it with The Legend of Zelda. Skyward Sword, honestly, when it first released on the Wii, bombed. It had issues with controls. It had issues with pacing. It had issues with dungeons. People just did not resonate with that game. So it took them a number of years, but then we got a brand new console title. We got a brand new console title with Breath of the Wild. So we went from one direction completely to another. Whether or not this works for Activision Blizzard with Call of Duty, we have to wait and see. There are a few things that they could do. Obviously, they've got Warzone, and Warzone is obviously going to be a big thing for them, ensuring people are still playing Call of Duty in 2023 and beyond. But whether or not that becomes their main feature, and then single player content becomes separate or zombies become separate, who knows? At this point, we don't know. But yeah, it is interesting to see that we are doing it in sort of that format, that we are looking at potentially seeing, what has essentially been a yearly series for the longest time, skipping a year, which again is not unheard of, but it's very rare that it happens. Moving on to some more lighthearted news, or some good news if you're a PlayStation player. The PlayStation Plus lineup for March has been announced. So every month, PlayStation Plus, Xbox, and usually Nintendo will release a few games for their online membership programs. PlayStation Plus being the one for PlayStation owners. Usually, PlayStation owners will get 3 games. They'll get 2 PlayStation 4 titles and a PlayStation 5 game. PlayStation 4 games can be played on the PlayStation 5, but if there's generally some little caveats around restrictions about what is available and things like that. This month they're getting 4 with a caveat. So PlayStation 4 owners, so if you don't yet have a PlayStation 5, you can redeem these 2 titles. Well, 3 titles, but we'll get to the third in a moment. So the first is Ark Survival Evolved, which is, the open world. It's Minecraft with dinosaurs and slightly different visuals. Notice I didn't say better, I said different. So yeah, Ark Survival Evolved will be the first title for PlayStation 4 owners. And then the second is Team Sonic Racing. Team Sonic Racing, obviously, is the third entry in the Sonic Racing series. It's the one that didn't do so well when it released, for a variety of reasons. The racing itself is solid, but it just wasn't a game that appealed to a lot of players with, your actual team deciding where you ended up on the podium. So if you came in first, but the rest of your team that you were racing with came in last, the average would put you in the middle of the pack, which means you lose your podium spot. So there were some weird things around that which people didn't really gel with. If you have a PlayStation 5, Ghost Runner is the title that will be available for you to enjoy. Ghost Runner, very, very well received game on all its platforms. Even the Switch version is very highly, not sought after, but there's a lot of technical work went in to make that, version run spectacularly well, which it does, because it's a game about action and speed, and obviously you're a cybernetic ninja. This is where things now get a little tricky. So if you have a PlayStation 4 and you will be getting a PlayStation 5, but you don't yet have one, you cannot get Ghost Runner PS5 because you can't access the PlayStation 5 version on a PlayStation 4. Okay. If you do it via the website, you can redeem it. So if you go through the website, you can get all 3 games, the two PS4s and the PlayStation 5 game, but if you do it through the PlayStation 4, you'll only see the two PS4 titles. Where things are getting a little weird this month is that there is a fourth game. The fourth game is the Ghost of Tsushima Legends, which is the multiplayer mode that they added post-release of the main game. So this is where you and 3 friends, team up and undertake a variety of missions. It's just a generic sort of multiplayer thing, but set within the world of Ghost of Tsushima. The thing with this one is, if you already own the digital copy of Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, this is included in that, and you will not be able to redeem this as a fourth free game for the month. So if you own Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, you already own the Legends expansion, the Legends DLC, whatever you want to call it, and as such you cannot claim it for free because you already own it. A little confusing. They've not done something like this before. They've done some VR only titles before, but never anything specific like this. But yeah, so I'll be honest, it is a pretty decent month for owners, for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 owners. Ghost Runner is very much going to be one of those ones where people are going to enjoy it running through, trying to get the best times, trying to get through without dying, things like that. Team Sonic Racing is an enjoyable racer. Just that weird team mechanic does take a lot of adjusting to. You can't just speed ahead of the pack. You've got to try and stay with your mates or your teammates in the game and try and make sure that they survive as well. And then obviously Ark Survival Evolved. It can vary in its quality. You can spend 5 minutes and be utterly devastated because you wandered away from where you started and came across a cliff or a dinosaur that ate you. But you can spend hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon months in that game, leveling up and crafting new items and all that. And obviously Legends being a multiplayer focused title, if you don't have PlayStation Plus, or if it does run out, you can't make use of that one. Obviously you wouldn't be able to make use of it anyway because you don't have PlayStation Plus, and you can't play titles from that collection if you no longer own or no longer have an active subscription. But Legends does require that you keep an active subscription because it is multiplayer focused. Okay, that is PlayStation. That was announced yesterday. This morning, Xbox announced their lineup for March. So the games with gold lineup, same basic premise, different branding, obviously, is the Xbox version of the free games. Xbox do things a little differently. Whereas PlayStation will give you 3 titles normally, and that'll be available on the 1st or 2nd of the month and run through to the start of the next sort of period. Xbox will give you 4 titles. 1 will be available for the full month. 1 will be available for half a month. 1 will be available for a full month, but starting in the middle of the month and running to the middle of the next month. So it's a weird little system they've got going on, and it's basically just to keep you always subscribed and coming back all the time. For those who are Xbox One owners or Xbox Series X or S, you can get all these games. If you are Xbox 360 still, some people may just be enjoying that vast library of titles. There are 2 titles that you can redeem for your pleasure there. So the first 2 titles that we're going to look at are the sort of Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S versions of the games, and that is the Flame in the Flood, which will be the full month of March title, being available on March 1st, running through to the end of the month. The second game is Street Power Soccer. Street Power Soccer is a sort of more arcadey take, kind of like FIFA Street, of soccer, or football, depending on where you are in the world. This is the month-long one that starts in the middle of the month. So this begins in March 16, running through April 15. So that means the game that's available now, which started mid-February, is still available in the end of the month. For those who are on Xbox 360 or looking to add these games to their collection, we have Sacred 2 Fallen Angel, and this will be only available for the first 2 weeks of the month, so March 1st to March 15. And then the second half of the month will see SpongeBob's Truth or Square, which is another one of the platformers available to, in that SpongeBob genre. It is interesting that they are doing it that way, that they're doing it in half and half. Again, it's sort of to keep people coming back and checking again, but it's a little weird that they're doing it. The game that people can still get in the first 2 weeks of March from the February lineup is Aerial Knights Never Yield, which is that sort of speed-based runner title. It is interesting, you know, every time these sort of lineups come out for both PlayStation and Xbox, sometimes they're just jam-packed with like, you know, not AAA, but, you know, big name titles that people go, my God, I can't believe that's there. And then sometimes they're indie or they're really, really old games that maybe people have already owned for a number of years. I personally don't own any of those on console, so for both PlayStation or Xbox. So it is good, you know, to bolster my library that way. But yeah, some people enjoy what's there, some people don't. But now we're going to talk Nintendo and their offerings. So we knew it was coming, but today Majora's Mask is the latest addition to the Nintendo 64 app for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members. As was reported by Vooks earlier today, the game launched around lunchtime, so about 12 p.m. Sydney time today, into the app. Normally these updates to the app are very small. You know, they take maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes to download. This one took a lot longer because this one also fixed a bunch of issues with some of the emulation on older games. So, as you can see here in this screenshot that was taken by the team at Vooks, the Deku tree here in the background is very, you know, it's covered by fog. Prior to this update, that update did not exist. That specific fog element was not present, so you could clearly see the tree in the background. That same thing also happened in the Water Temple. So in the Water Temple, there's a room that you go into where you fight Shadow Link, who's basically a mirror version of yourself. So it's very hard to fight. When you go into that room, it's a very small room, but there's a lot of fog around, which makes the room seem infinite. When this game launched as part of the expansion offerings last September, that wasn't the case. There was no fog, so you could clearly see the things. Paper Mario also got an update fixing up one of the issues that they had with regards to a bug that would cause the game to crash and, you know, you would lose progress. It is also interesting, they also apparently updated Banjo-Kazooie. There's a user, a Twitch user by the name of Oatmeal Dome, who sort of deep dives into these things every time there's an update. And he said that there's some unknown code added to Banjo. We don't know what that's done. Is that paving the way for the stop and swap, offerings for Banjo-Tooie? Is Banjo-Tooie No, that's not what it means, because we just don't know. And I said they also fixed up some of the other stuff as well. Yeah, so there's been a lot that they've done to it. Star Fox 64 also got an update. So it is very, very good to see that Nintendo are finally paying attention to these things and keeping them going, which is something they've unfortunately failed to do in the past with some of their virtual console releases back on the Wii U and the Wii. But lately, Nintendo have been pretty good with releasing these things more and more and more, which I'm very happy with. Now, though, we're going to talk a little bit of esports, which is not something we normally talk about here on Maxi Geek. So, in the world of esports, there are venues all around the world that let players or fans go in. You can watch games, you can play computer games there. It's basically a hub for gamers to hang out. Just before the pandemic started, literally like the weekend before everything shut down, Fortress opened up their Melbourne location in the CBD of Melbourne. And that was a massive space. There's a dedicated arena where there's tiered seating for people to watch. I think there's about 200 people can fit in there. There are private rooms that you can rent. There's what they call a tavern, which is like an old medieval style inn where there's tables. You can put board games down and play like Dungeons and Dragons inside a tavern and have food brought to the table and all that sort of stuff. So it was a very well thought out location. It opened and then the pandemic hit. But the folks behind Fortress aren't stopping, because they've announced, as per OzGamers here reporting, that they are opening up a Sydney location, hoping for a summer opening in early 2023. At the moment, we know it's going to be located at the Central Park Mall near the Broadway Shopping Centre. So if you do know Sydney, that is where it's aiming to be. Where exactly within the shopping centre, we don't know. So when the one at Melbourne was announced, they said they were going in Emporium, and Emporium back then was fairly complete. There wasn't a lot of space for people to build things in. So there's a lot of questions about where that was going to go. And in the end, they took over some of the car parking space to sort of fill it out, but they also went over multiple floors. There's escalators inside to take you from one floor to another. So it is a little bit of a maze to get around in Emporium at Fortress at Emporium in Melbourne. Maybe it'll be the same here. It'll be multiple stories. Maybe it'll just be one major, one story on its own, just spread out further. We don't know. The one in Melbourne does have multiple bars as well. So, if you're someone who likes to drink with your games, you can make your full use of that. It is interesting that, the concept is expanding. The guys running Fortress, they sort of took inspiration from the I think it was the Hisense Arena in Las Vegas. I don't think it was Hisense. But there's a big gaming arena in Las Vegas at the Luxor, which is the hotel that's shaped like a pyramid. So yeah, there's been a lot of of growth in the whole esports market. Providing plenty of space for people to go in, and you and a couple of mates can spend a few hours just gaming on a dedicated, PC. If your machine at home is not the best, this is a way for you to get access to high quality machines. The machines at Fortress are Alienware, so they're not cheap. Obviously, they're big, beefy machines. And there's even streaming rooms in these locations, so you can actually go in if you're someone who wants to stream, like I am doing right now. You can use these rooms to do so. If you're set up at home, it does not allow you, or maybe your internet's just not good enough to do so. So the official statement from the team at Fortress. So John Satterley is the CEO and co-founder. Unfortunately, it's a bit of the whole Melbourne sucks, Sydney's better, Sydney sucks, Melbourne's better argument. But just states Melbourne was our first, you might call it a prototype. Fortress Sydney will be the jewel in our crown. It will be an awe-inspiring new home of games, the epitome of everything we've worked towards, the ultimate statement in live games culture entertainment. So yeah. Okay, so just state down the bottom, it's over 2 levels. So there you go. So, they've said basically, if Melbourne's great, Sydney's going to be better. And I'll be honest, the Melbourne location is pretty spectacular. As I said, it is a bit of a maze based on where it was put into the shopping centre. But its purpose, it's right by the university. So, it's sort of perfect spot for the uni students to sort of hang out after school, I should say. It's in the middle of the CBD, so it's sort of close to everything. Whether or not the Sydney one takes off, we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be, 12 months or so before we get it. But yeah, it's interesting to see that's what they're sort of going for. Now, talking about going places, let's head back to Fallout. Bethesda have revealed the plans for Fallout 76 for the year. So obviously last month we got a look at what is coming for The Elder Scrolls Online, which is their big MMO, and Fallout 76, which is not technically an MMO, but it's still a massively multiplayer online game. We knew that the first expedition was coming. We now know when that's going to land this year, but there's also some details about what else is coming through in the year. So there are 4 sort of key things we're going to see this year. You might notice it says spring at the bottom underneath the little pictures here, spring, summer, fall, and winter. That is the American seasons, because Bethesda never released these things for the Southern Hemisphere. They only ever do it for the North. So just invert the seasons. So the spring becomes autumn. So the first period, which is basically March through May, is autumn here in Australia. So that is where the Invaders from Beyond sort of season, if you will come into play. It says new public events, new updates to the world, and Season 8, A Better Life Underground, will add more elements to the Vault experience. Season 2. So the winter season is the Test Your Metal sort of, we'll call it an expansion, if you will. So again, new public events to take part in, updates to Fallout First, and Season 9 will launch then. But the big thing with Test Your Metal is that it is literally a place where you can test your metal against automatons in an arena. So you can go in with your best power armor, your best weapons, maybe a couple of stim packs, and then go in and try and see how long you can survive against a horde of deadly robots. Whether or not that's your thing, we don't know the details on these, so we'll have to wait and see. But an arena challenge every now and again is pretty good fun. In the spring of our Australian seasons is when we will be leaving Appalachia and heading to the pit in the first expedition for Fallout 76. So long-time Fallout fans from the Bethesda years will know that the pit was the second DLC for Fallout 3 many years ago. It took players from Washington, from the capital wasteland, all the way over to Pittsburgh, or as they just call it, the pit, where there was a whole new sort of quest line and subquests to enjoy. Finally, wrapping out the year in the winter period for the northern hemisphere, or our summer. So we're looking sort of maybe early December for this one. Is the Nuka World on tour. So this is sort of a circus, sort of themed to Nuka World, Nuka Cola. What it brings, we honestly don't know. So that is when Season 11 will kick off. They have confirmed there's a new region boss for it, but other than that, we really don't know the details for it. So Fallout 76, they do have, as I said, a big year-long plan. This is just the general overview. We will see more and more about it as we get closer to things. But yeah, that is what Fallout are looking to bring for players who are enjoying that. Obviously, if you are an Xbox Game Pass subscriber or a PC Game Pass subscriber, or you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which includes Xbox and PC Game Pass, Fallout 76 is included in that membership because it is a Bethesda title and they're owned by Microsoft. So there you go. So a lot of things coming for Fallout fans. Whether or not that's for you, let us know. Speaking of things that are coming, we now have a release date for the first of the new Amiibo for Smash Brothers. So again, being reported here by Vooks, the Min Min Amiibo is set to arrive on April 29, which is the same day that Nintendo Switch Sports will release. Nintendo Switch Sports, yeah. So that is going to be when we get our first of our Fighter Pass Season 2, or Fighter Pass Volume 2, I think it was called, Amiibos, because Min Min was the first. But with that announcement also came that the Minecraft Amiibo, so the Steve and I want to say Jess, I'm pretty sure it was Jess, but the two Minecraft Amiibo are being delayed until later in the year, mostly due to shipping related and logistical issues. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of news with that one. We now have a release date for the first of the Amiibo. We did get confirmation that we are going to get some additional Amiibo based on the Smash Brothers DLC. So we're going to get Terry and Kazuya, things like that. The only one we haven't had any information on is if we're going to get a Sora Amiibo. The odds of that happening, people say, are very slim. People say, no, we have everyone else coming as an Amiibo. Why not Sora? Obviously, there's a lot of licensing issues with manufacturing of figures because there are companies that specifically license, the Disney, the Kingdom Hearts brand from Square Enix and Disney. Because while Square Enix makes Kingdom Hearts, Disney are the IP owner of that. So it's not that Square Enix can say, well, we'll make a Kingdom Hearts game, but we won't put any Disney stuff in it. No, they can't do that because Disney own the rights to Kingdom Hearts and all those characters, including Sora. Obviously, when they did reveal that Sora was coming into Kingdom Hearts, into Smash Brothers, the only Disney element was the Mickey Mouse head on the back of the Keyblade on the chain, because without that, it's not really accurate to be what the Keyblade was. But it also means that there's not much that we can see. There was nothing else Disney related throughout that reveal, and even when the game launched, there was nothing else. It is a little weird how that all works, but that's what marketing is for you. So the game Jump Force from Bandai Namco recently just shut down, so you can't buy it anymore digitally, which makes sense. These things do have limited shelf lives. These days, it's mostly tied to, say, music, but a title like Jump Force has a lot of different rights holders. So, you know, there's the author for the Naruto comics, there's the author for the Dragon Ball comics, there's the author for the One Piece comics, right? So even though publishers own rights, there's also rights that need to be dealt with the authors. So anytime something that has a lot of moving parts for rights, those things tend to fade away pretty quickly because they'll be for a limited time only, or, you know, for, you know, there has to be a balance between things. The best example is that in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Donald Duck and Daffy Duck are on screen at the same time, and Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny are on screen for the exact same amount of time, not 100% the same time on screen, because one comes in before the other, but they are on screen for the exact same duration of time. And that was a thing from Warner Brothers, that they didn't want to put their characters in there in a Disney film unless there was equal, you know, screen time for all of them, which Disney were happy to do. But, you know, that was one of the things that they had to do. And that was in the 80s when, you know, copyright and all that sort of stuff wasn't maybe as complex as it is now. But yeah, so Min Min we get on the same day that we get Nintendo Switch Sports, and the Minecraft Amiibo we'll see sometime later in the year. It is a little weird though. It's not weird, a little rare that we actually got confirmation that it was due to logistics and a production delay. But there you go. These things do happen occasionally. But, you know, we just have to sort of wait and see, you know, when it'll release. Obviously, there's still more Amiibo that we'll come across in the future. Street Fighter. Street Fighter is celebrating 35 years this year, and Capcom have basically kicked off Street Fighter 6 already. So we just got the last DLC for Street Fighter 5, which was Luke, who looks very much like me. That's not true. He looks nothing like me. But we got Luke at the end of 2021, and then at the end of the esports tournament they just finished hosting, they revealed Street Fighter 6 is coming. The problem is we got a trailer with a logo saying Street Fighter 6, and that's it. So we got this image of Ryu, and we got this one here of whoever this guy is and Ryu. That's it. That's all we know. We don't know any other details. We don't know what platforms the game's coming to. We don't know when the game's coming out. We don't even know if Street Fighter 6 is its full title. They have obviously done Street Fighter, you know, numbered entries before. But, you know, we've seen Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Alpha, Street Fighter, you know, 17 words and an epsilon symbol. So whether or not Street Fighter 6 remains the full title or they add a subtitle to it, we don't know. They have said that we will get more details in the summer months. So this is very much a, you know, the Metroid Prime 4 announcement of, hey, we are working on it. And then that's it. Obviously, there's been a bit of, you know, of an issue around the quality of the logo, given that there is a very, very, very similar logo, like 96% similar, from the Adobe sort of stock library. That if you're a member of that, you can access those things and you know, use them in your work. This one's very, very similar to that. The actual layout of the letter is a little differently, a little more angular in the Street Fighter logo, but the actual logo is very, very similar. And obviously there's been a lot of jokes about the fact that it kind of looks like it's a Street Fighter app icon with a notification saying there's 6 things to look into. You know, and people have had fun with that, talking about the Mortal Kombat is actually just the Google Mail thing. So yeah, it is interesting that we have it coming already. But yeah, it's sort of not so much, you know, weird that they've announced it. I mean, it is the 35th anniversary. I would expect them to announce it. But it is odd that they chose to basically say, hey, Street Fighter 5, we've just spent, you know, hours celebrating the best players in the world with this game. Oh, here's the next game coming. So I get why they've done it at the event. People are already, Street Fighter fans are already tuned in. They're already paying attention to what's going on. But then to just basically turn around and say, oh, and by the by, now we're moving on to Street Fighter 6. It seems a little weird to cut yourself off that way. Obviously, Street Fighter 5 did only release on PC and PlayStation. Whether or not Street Fighter 6 hits Xbox or Switch or whatever, who knows? We have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, it is obviously very early on, but we'll have more details in the winter months for us. During that same event, though, Capcom did also confirm the next collection that they're making, the Capcom Fighting Collection. So, unfortunately, Capcom suck at naming these collections. So this is the 5th, technically it's the 8th collection on Switch, of things. This is like the 5th one, so from Capcom. So we obviously launched with the Street Fighter collection. There's the Capcom Arcade collection. There's the 2 Mega Man, so the original Mega Man, and then the Mega Man Legacy collections, and now Capcom Fighting Collection. What is a big deal about this one, though, is that the collection is going to be revealing, there's these 10 games. The Vampire Hunter 2, Darkstalker's Revenge, and Vampire Savior 2, The Lord of Vampire. They were never released outside of Japan. One of them got a port from the arcade release to the home console, but again, never left Japan. And then Red Earth is the first time it's actually being released outside of the arcade period. So a lot of these games people have played, and they do have fun memories of it. There's the teaser screenshot of Vampire, I think that's Vampire Hunter 2 from memory. And sort of, we've got a bunch of screens here for them as well. What is sort of weird is that, they're putting Street Fighter in there, which makes sense. People do love their Street Fighters. But for Nintendo players, that game is already available on the Switch. We already have the Street Fighter collection, which includes a lot of titles. What is interesting, though, is that they're not just putting these games on there and being done with it. The anthology, which is what sort of they're calling it, will have a training mode for all of the titles. So all but one. So it will have online multiplayer, local multiplayer. It's going to use the rollback netcode feature for people who are fighting game enthusiasts. So that is something you don't need to worry about. But they're adding a training mode to all the games, so you can actually practice the different button combinations and attacks and all that to ensure you actually can, survive if you do go online and not get owned by somebody who's been playing these games for 20, 30 years. The only game that doesn't have a training mode will be Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, which if I scroll down to the picture here, let me put that on the screen. That is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. As you match blocks, your character does attacks and all that. So it's a very, very simple puzzle game, but there's not really any training needed for that. As long as you can match things, you're fine. But yeah, this collection is due out. We did get a date for it. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's like July something. June 24. So June 24th, that one, and as you can see, is coming to Switch, PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, and it will be backwards compatible with PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. But yeah, I'll be honest, I'm sort of done with Capcom and their collections at this point. As I said, we've had a few on Switch. The Street Fighter collection on Switch, basically came with all of the Street Fighter games. Not all of them, obviously, but the bulk of them. So Street Fighter, so the original Street Fighter, which most people don't even know exists because it is nothing like Street Fighter 2. But we got Street Fighter 2, and then we got the versions of the World Warrior Champion Edition, Hyper Fighting, and Hyper Fighting is what most people are aware of. Super Street Fighter 2, the new challenges, Super Street Fighter 2, the tournament battle, which was the first time that was released anywhere. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And then we got Street Fighter Alpha, Warrior's Dream, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Street Fighter Alpha 3, Street Fighter 3 New Generation, Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. So, if you're a Switch player and you want, to enjoy some Street Fighter, there is, plenty of ways to get it outside of this collection. This collection is really going to be for those, fighting fans who want to enjoy the Darkstalkers series, because this is all the games. But yeah. Again, it's one of those interesting things where Capcom, rather than releasing them individually like they did with the So the arcade collection. There was a fighting arcade collection, which, you know, had things like Joust and all that in it. And then there was the arcade pack that just sort of came out, where you would buy there were three different bundles of games that you could buy, or you could buy the games individually. But yeah, Capcom kept doing these collections, which is good in one sense, because, you know, they're interesting collections, especially from a legacy and a preservation point of view. But at the same time, they're not really, you know, if you're an arcade fighter, you either have these games in some fashion already, or you're not an arcade fighter fan, and therefore this collection has no relevance to you. And Capcom keep doing these sort of collections with these arcade games, and not necessarily some of their older titles, their older console titles. That's the way these things are. Speaking of the way things are, Bethesda are getting rid of their Bethesda launcher, and in April we'll be migrating everyone to Steam. As here being reported by OzGamers, it's essentially, you know, it's I guarantee it's a Microsoft thing. So at the moment, there are so many folks that have a launcher. So obviously Steam is the big one. So Steam is the original, you know, game launcher. And then, you know, GOG, so Good Old Game, have one. Epic have one. Uplay, so Ubisoft. EA technically have two at the moment. They have Original Origin and New Desktop Origin. There's Bethesda with their one, and I'm sure there are others as well. So what is interesting about this is that they will be migrating everything across to Steam. So you'll be able to link your Bethesda launcher account to your Steam account and all your ownership. So if you have every Bethesda game in your Bethesda launcher library, all the ownership will transfer across to the Steam versions of those games. Most of the saves will auto-transfer, but there will be a few that will not transfer on its own. So, you know, you'll have to manually do that. What they are, we don't know yet. They're not saying. It's probably more likely going to be some of the older titles, like say Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion or earlier, but we have to wait and see. But yeah, you know, there's a line here at the bottom says, you know, with Bethesda being part of Xbox, interesting that Steam was chosen over the native Xbox app, which is true. The reason why I think that was done is because Steam is basically the home of PC gaming. Obviously, Epic do get a lot of timed exclusives because they pay the money for them, whereas Steam is very much open to anyone and everyone. And I think that's sort of what Microsoft's sort of you know, mantra is at the moment. Is it's not about making the games exclusive to their platforms, but putting games where people play. And obviously, PC players, a lot of those folks will have, you know, a Steam library already. They may even own all these games on Steam as well as Bethesda. They may have double ownership, but that's going to be the way of the future, I suppose. Is that, you know, until we either get one dedicated PC launcher, you may have ownership of multiple titles on multiple platforms. I know I own some games on Epic and on Steam, but that's sort of the way these things are. Right, the last sort of news story we're going to talk about this week is PlayStation VR 2. PlayStation VR 2 is honestly the weirdest name because it is the exact name everyone thought it was going to be. But while that name is very generic, the actual headset and controllers are not. So we did get a look at the controllers back in April of last year. So we got the controllers in April. We got the name back in, I think it was actually early January. But they've basically been drip feeding us information about the PlayStation VR 2. And now we have a look at the actual headset itself. One of the big things that you'll notice looking at this picture at the top here is that there are cameras built in because, much like the Oculus Quest 2, and I refuse to call it the Meta Quest 2, is because it no longer requires an external camera or tracking system like the Vive, the Steam Vive headset does. So no longer will you need a PlayStation camera to do this. It's all in the headset. One of the things that they've put in there is that the screen will have, you know, much higher resolution, screens. Refresh rate's still 120 hertz, but there's now an adjustable depth slider essentially for the lenses. So if you say you wear glasses and you need the lenses to be a little further away, on some other headsets you wear like a special adapter to give you a little bit more push away from your face. With this one, you can just adjust the actual depth of the lenses, but it also means that, you don't have to keep rejiggering the headset on your head to try and make sure it's in the right spot. You can actually just adjust it with those sliders. Obviously, you can see the headset here looking in with the two new orb controllers, which very much look like the old Sony Ericsson mobile phone logo. And it's got, triangle, square on one side, X and circle on the other, analog sticks, triggers underneath. Very traditional sort of button style thing, but it obviously has all the motion tracking and all that in it. Something that is a little weird, I don't think it's in this statement, is that it actually does have vibration inside. So if you're playing hello Elped Roxt, hopefully I said that right, but if you're playing a fighting game like one of the Creed boxing titles that came out on PlayStation VR, there's now a chance that with PlayStation VR 2 you actually take the punch to the head and you actually get a headache from it because the headset can vibrate. I don't think it's actually going to knock you out. I don't think the intent there is to make it feel like your head is actually vibrating when the headset does. But it is interesting that they're putting that sort of feedback in there. That honestly makes me think of those, in the early 2000s, people were making vibrating, vests. So, if your character got shot in the chest, the thing would hit you and, simulate where you would get shot, stuff like that. I don't think they're going to go in that way at all because, that just seems like an easy way to get sued. But, we have to wait and see. One of the things that I did like, if you can see here on this image, there are these vents on the black sort of portion, which is the part that wraps around your face. They're actually not just a cosmetic thing. They're not just looking that way to say, "Hey, look at us. We are pretty fancy looking." No, these are actually to allow airflow to go in and out of the headset. So one of the problems that a lot of headsets have now, even the Oculus Quest 2, which is one of the better headsets, is that there is no airflow. So once you strap it onto your face, you're very much locked into that. You're in that world, you're in that environment. This one, they're putting in these vents to allow for airflow. How much airflow? We don't know. They've not said they've got like fans pushing air through, so it could just be a very minimal flow. But even that could be enough to offset that whole my face is sweating a lot. I need to take this off. At the moment, nobody's gone hands-on or heads-on with the PlayStation VR 2. I personally like the Oculus Quest 2 because it doesn't require any additional components. The PlayStation VR, the HTC Vive or the Steam Vive, whatever you want to call it, they all require additional hardware to run. So you do have to have a computer or a PlayStation console. The PlayStation VR 2 is the same. You'd need a PlayStation 5 in order to make use of this one. Whereas Oculus Quest 2, it can connect to your computer, so you can play all your Steam VR games via it. But if you don't want to do that, you can just play everything just straight off the headset, which personally to me makes it more appealing because it means that, if you don't have a very beefy computer, you can still get some VR experience via the Quest 2. That's my personal thing. But again, the tech specs on the VR 2 are sort of a league above what we've got currently with the Quest 2 and with the Steam one. Whether or not that translates to being good, who knows? The other thing too is that because of all the new technology with this one, so the new headset shape, the new headband, the adjustable depth on the lenses, the screens themselves, the two orb controllers, price is going to be a big thing. So an Oculus Quest 2 you can get for like $400, AUD, and you're good to go. The PlayStation VR 2, you need a console. They're $650 for a digital only, $750 for one with a disc drive. But then you still have to get the headset, and the headset could be the same cost as the PlayStation 5 itself. So $400 for an Oculus Quest 2 versus $1,500 for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation VR 2. So, at the moment, it's like, no, go Oculus because it is affordable, doesn't require additional hardware, and, is available. But PlayStation VR 2 obviously is going to have the brands from Sony. We already know there is a Horizon game coming. So Horizon Call of the Mountain. No, it's not wireless. So there is, you can see here on the picture, there is a black cord that runs from it. We don't know if that goes to another box like the PlayStation VR did, or if it's going to be straight into the console. Because again, they've not said anything. We do know that it will have, again, no camera required, because it does have cameras in the front of the headset. If I go up to the top, you'll see them on the picture there. So we do know that it does no longer need a PlayStation camera. Well, that's the thing. So that is obviously how it's powered. But if you notice off to the side here, how it's got that sort of extra support around the cable as it goes into the headset, just here on the left, on the right, sorry. That is one of those, this is a fixed cable. It doesn't come out, it's got the extra sort of grip around it to ensure that it doesn't break, doesn't come loose, because that's where power and data go into to power the screens. But yeah, so one of the things is the PlayStation VR 1 required a camera, and for such a long time you couldn't buy the cameras because PlayStation didn't make a lot of them, and if you didn't have the camera you couldn't use the headset. And then I think it's maybe 9 months after the headset launched, they started releasing bundles with the actual camera in there. And obviously to PlayStation VR 1, you could either use the PlayStation 4 controller, the PlayStation Move controllers from the PS3 days, or the gun controller. What was that called? PlayStation Move. I think it was just called the PlayStation Move gun controller. I don't think it had a fancy name. But and all those controllers were optional. Obviously, if you had a PS4, you had the PS4 controller, whereas this one's coming with the controllers as well. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to sort of talk about with this one once we start knowing it. Obviously, again, that price is going to be the big one. If the price is too high, people just won't care. They won't get into this because, if the cost is too high, what's the point? Why are we going to worry about the cost of something? If there is, if I have to sort of sell a piece of my liver or donate, blood to science to do so. Yeah. Finally, I did say that was our last story, but there is actually one additional one that I want to talk about because it is very timely. And that is that in just a few minutes at 8 p.m. Sydney time, Babylon's Fall will get a demo on both PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4. Babylon's Fall is the new Platinum title. So Platinum Games are making this for Square Enix. It is a Destiny-like title. So it is an always online shared world experience where you and 3 friends can run around, as you fight through the Tower of Babylon. Tower of Babel. And as you can see here in this art, one of the things is that your character can actually have 4 weapons. So each hand can hold, a different weapon, an axe, a sword, a long sword, short sword. But as you level up, you can unlock this ability to have 2 energy-based hands coming off your back, which you can see sort of there in the art as well. And those... well, that's the thing. The PSVR 1 launched at around $450 with just the headset. There was no camera, no PlayStation VR sort of specific controllers at that price. This new one will have much more tech in it and does come with the controllers. So if you're talking $600 US, that's around the price of the console, which is what most people are thinking, is that the VR2 headset or the VR2 kit will cost the same as an actual PlayStation 5. Which is not a great selling point, but it's obviously going to be one of those things for the dedicated gamer. But yeah, Babylon's Fall, has the demo, and all the progress that you make in the demo will carry across to the full game when that releases early next month. They also have revealed the first season's worth of content. So the first season is essentially launching today as part of the demo, and will run through to the end of May. And unlike Battlefield and Fortnite, where you pay for access to the seasons, at least this very first season will be completely free. So all the stuff you can earn, you don't have to pay for at all during the season, because you get the season for owning the game. As you can see here, they're adding a new game mode in March. There's a new faction being added in the second March update, new weapons and new stories as well. In the end of March, there will be a Nier Automata collaboration. Got tripped up on the word. So if you're a Nier fan, there'll be a sort of Nier stuff. And Nier Automata was actually created by Platinum. They were the developers of that as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that particular crossover, and obviously more story stuff and more cosmetics in April. Beyond April, we don't know what they're going to do, and we don't know what they're going to do for the second season. So there's still a lot that we don't know about how this game's going to go long term. But again, so we're less than 60 seconds away from that demo hitting the PlayStation Store for both PS4 and PS5. So if you have the consoles and you're curious, this will be a great way for you to experience what it's all about, and sample. Try before you buy. Obviously, one of the big things is that it is a Platinum game, so the combat is going to be, fast and frenetic. How that translates to an online title, we have to wait and see, because Platinum have never done anything like this. Square Enix have done something like this before with, they've got their Final Fantasy Onlines, their Dragon Quest Online in Japan, but they've also got Avengers, and Avengers was very much the same way that this is, where it's a shared world sort of experience with friends. So, yeah, we have to wait and see how that'll all shake out. But the demo should be live now. So if you are curious, you can go ahead and grab that. Let me just see if it is live while I'm talking, because why not? It is live. Let me grab that link and throw it in the chat. So the demo is live now, as it is for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and all progress does carry across to the full game. But there you go. That is the end. Timed that pretty well. That's the end of another episode of the Maxi Geek Show. We'll be back next Friday at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time to talk about whatever news happens to be out that week. Obviously, this week was pretty quiet. There wasn't a lot of big news stories this week, but there was a lot of news to go over. We'll be back online on Tuesday. It is exclusive to PlayStation as the console, but it is also on PC. So it's PS4 and PS5 for console, and PC as well, but the demo is only on PlayStation. We'll be back on Tuesday for the next episode of our James Bond series, where we're playing through all the James Bond console games. We are currently playing through Agent Under Fire via the GameCube. So we're back there for 6:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time for that one, and then back again next Friday for another episode of the Maxi Geek Show. If you did check us out live, hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you watched the replay on YouTube, hope you enjoyed that as well. We'll catch you next time we're streaming. So until then, happy gaming.